Command Sergeant Major of the 101st Field Artillery Regiment, Ryan McLean. Please stand if you are able.
Good morning. Please join me in a pledge to our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for all you do. Let's go.
Please welcome the Executive Director and CEO of MMA, Adam Chapdelaine.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. What an awesome video, right? Love it, love it. I am beyond excited to welcome all of you to a second straight record-setting Connect 351. It is so great to be gathered here with all of you to celebrate local government and to learn, to grow, and to be re-energized. I want to start this morning by acknowledging we have over 300 first-time attendees registered for this conference joining us here this morning. If this is your first time attending, please stand up so we can acknowledge you. This is your first time. Welcome, welcome, and I hope you have a great conference experience. So I also want to start today by acknowledging that you're all living and working in times of uncertainty, upheaval, and change. None of us are living in a new normal. We're living in a time between a historic normal and a yet-to-be-realized new and future normal. And I'm not going to pretend that I know what the future holds. But what I do know is that these uncertain times make your jobs in local government more challenging. More challenging in terms of building community trust, more challenging in terms of balancing your budgets, and more challenging in terms of meeting the needs of your residents. I also know that with all these challenges you're facing, making the time to come to a conference like this is no small feat. And for that, I'm deeply, deeply grateful. And finally, I know that in these times with these challenges, the work of local government has never been more important. So think for a moment, residents across the Commonwealth wake up every day, read the news. You can imagine they could be left wondering who they can trust and who they can rely on. And you know what? They can trust all of you. You and your teams work tirelessly to provide the foundational quality of life services that local government provides, and you do so consistently and professionally. And more recently, so many of you have opened up the doors to your cities and town halls to residents who have been left wondering whether or not they'll still be served by our federal government. And so it's through that lens that here at the MMA, we view our duty to all of you as our members. Last year, I stood on this stage and I told all of you that you are our why, that you're our cause of action. That was true then, and it remains just as true today. And that's why the team at the MMA and Maya works all year to make sure that we can provide you the MMA offerings that I hope you've come to know and love. But it's also why over this past year, we have worked so hard to innovate and adapt to make sure that we're providing you with timely trainings, relevant communication, and advocacy that meets up with the on-the-ground conditions that you face in your communities. So to share just a few examples of that, our Administration and Finance Division, led by Katie McHugh, they've worked to offer a third location for the 2026 Suffolk Certificate Program, expanding our geographic reach and providing more access to all of you to be part of this best-in-class educational and professional development opportunity. Our Chief Equity Officer, Jill Harvey, has worked to expand the accessibility offerings at this conference, which you can see today. And she also organized the affinity group meetups at this conference that have allowed so many of you to connect more deeply with your peers. Our legislative division, led by Dave Kaufman, played a key role in the successful passage of a number of bills, most notably a historic increase in Chapter 90 funding. Our communications team, headed up by John Willett, launched the MMA's first ever podcast, The 351, which has already had over 800 downloads across all platforms. And our membership team, led by Jackie Lavender Bird, worked with our newest affiliate group, the Massachusetts Municipal Communicators, to hold their first ever in-person meeting in 2025. And the membership team has also worked to put together an AI webinar series that will launch next month. I also want to acknowledge Maya, led by Stan Corcoran, who continue to be tremendous supporters of the work of the MMA and also critical partners to so many of you who access Maya's programs. It's my hope that some or all of this work has had a direct and meaningful impact on you and your communities. The other big effort that we undertook over the course of 2025, and really the one that I want to spend the rest of my time on this morning, resulted in our municipal financial analysis that led us to release 2 reports in the fall: A Perfect Storm and Navigating the Storm. And if I can be candid for a minute, we went all out on this effort. It was a cross-team project that so many people from the MMA played a critical role in. And you know what? I think people took notice. We've been covered in over 80 news reports, and I am confident that we have caught the attention of state leaders with this work. So now, thank you. So now with the rest of my time today, I want to just provide a brief recap of our findings and recommendations. For so long now, so many of you have been doing more with less. To balance your books, you've been constraining services and asking more of your local taxpayers, all to try to hold back a tide that's been rising for well over a decade. When we released A Perfect Storm, it wasn't just a collection of data. We named the fiscal breaking point that you all feel in your communities every day. But the data we put together demonstrated what we thought to be true. First, that you're all facing a funding gap. While the state budget has grown to meet critical needs, local government spending on an inflation-adjusted basis has been throttled at just 0.6%. That is a fraction of the national average. You've also seen an erosion of state aid. Despite recent investments by the Commonwealth, unrestricted general government aid, again on an inflation-adjusted basis, is lower than it was 2 decades ago. And you also face constraints. You're locked in by Proposition 2.5, you're barred from local revenue diversity, and you're watching 3 out of 4 of your neighboring communities come up against their levy limits. This isn't just a rainy day. This is a structural issue. When all of you are cutting, you are not cutting fat. You are now cutting bone. But let's be honest about the environment that we're operating in. We're not just shouting this out into this void here. We know that our partners at the State House, Governor Healy, the Speaker, the Senate President, they're facing their own gloomy weather forecast. They're dealing with slow revenue growth and, in a shifting federal landscape. They're watching as you're all dealing with rising healthcare costs and pandemic reserves that are coming to an end. But the message that we need to carry, and we will carry to Beacon Hill, is that the competitiveness and success of the Commonwealth depends on the fiscal health of cities and towns. When municipal budgets fail, the state's foundation cracks. And that's why we're advocating for tools for all of you. We're not advocating for the state to solve all of your problems. We're advocating to the state to provide you with the tools so that we can all work to solve them together. And that led to us releasing Navigating the Storm. This wasn't a wish list. This was a blueprint for charting a course to fiscal sustainability for cities and towns in the Commonwealth. And here's what that course looks like. First, $351 million for 351 cities and towns. This is our priority ask. This increase would mean in your local community, your allocation would go up by 26.5%. And what we're asking for here is a return to UGA funding levels toward, not at, toward where they were before the Great Recession. And a restoration of a state and local government partnership that can help you manage the economic headwinds that you are currently facing. Now is the time to start making progress towards this goal. We're also advocating for flexibility and empowerment, more tools. That's why we're advocating for the Municipal Empowerment Act and the ability to adjust local option taxes on meals and lodging, and for a modern approach to Proposition 2.5 that could allow for gradual multi-year overrides as well as increases that are tied to the actual cost of living. And finally, stability for education. Chapter 70 aid, special education circuit breaker, rural school aid, and other key accounts need to be funded and protected. A perfect storm. Thank you, thank you. A perfect storm was about the challenges that risk pulling you under. Navigating the storm was about charting a course to fiscal sustainability that is both durable and equitable. As local leaders, you are the most resilient, dedicated, creative people that I know. You navigated a global pandemic, you continue to navigate shifting economic headwinds, and you deal with the daily pressures of local governance. But now is the time for all of us to speak with one voice and tell the state that we understand the challenges that they're facing because you all live them every single day. And at the same time, insist that a stronger Massachusetts starts at the local level. I am so grateful for all the work that you do for your communities and for your support of the MMA. I look forward to standing side by side with you in 2026 and beyond as we make this case. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now, it is my honor to introduce our next speaker, a member of the MMA, a friend of the MMA, an incredible leader in her city and in her community, and our host here in Boston, Mayor Michelle Wu.
Good morning, everyone. It is a wonderful delight and breath of fresh air to see you all here. Welcome to Boston, and thank you so much to Adam and the entire MMA team for all of your leadership, for Mayor Holtz and to each one of you all who's gathered here. Thank you, thank you. I want to especially give a shout out to Jamie and Katie as well for choosing Boston to host Connect 351, and to Adam. I will just ditto everything that he just said about the need for action now and the need for local municipalities to have every tool in the toolbox to act. I also want to thank Governor Healy and the Healy-Driscoll administration for their leadership, and to each and every one of our city and town officials who are gathered here today. I know usual custom is that elected officials get recognized around the room, but we have all 351 represented here, so consider everyone thanked, welcomed, recognized, and that would take all day. So let me say this instead. On behalf of the City of Boston, welcome, Thank you all. Thank you for your willingness to come here and take a few hours or a few days out of your very, very busy schedules in your communities. Thank you for your willingness to work together, share information and strategies, and create strong regional partnerships that are so needed right now. People in Massachusetts expect a lot from local government, and that's because you keep showing them what local government is capable of. This year we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the birth of our country and the role of so many of our communities in making that happen. But 150 years, even before that, Massachusetts was already home to thriving and strong local government. In our town meetings, then select boards, then cities, we have been the bedrock of what American values have always stood for, that everyone in our community counts, that only together can we achieve what our communities need, and not just for this moment, but far into the future for generations to come. And that is what the MMA and each and every one of us in our local cities is trying our very best to do in this moment. And we know why it matters. For most people, their relationship with government overall starts and ends with local government. They look to us when their kids are old enough to start school, and even before then, when they're interested in starting a small business, or when there's a storm that's expected to dump upwards of 1.5 feet of snow on our communities. That's why our work is so important. We feel the impacts first. We hear about the problems from our residents before anyone at higher levels do. And we're the ones responsible for solving problems, not at the speed of bureaucracy, but at the speed of our residents' lives. So today I want to talk a little bit about why it's so critical that cities and towns like ours have the flexibility to meet our residents' needs. The governor said it last night. Right now, cities and towns all across the Commonwealth are facing stiff economic headwinds, rising costs, fiscal unpredictability, and an affordability and housing crisis that touches every community across the state. At the same time, I don't have to tell you all, the federal government isn't making any of this better. They're pulling funding for community health centers and transportation projects, sending in masked agents to terrify our neighbors and neighborhoods. Local leaders are called on to help families survive when everything's getting more expensive, and we're being called on to defend against authoritarianism, all with far fewer resources than before. Municipalities need more flexibility to be able to do everything that our residents are asking of us. And our residents need us to have the freedom to solve problems in ways that make sense for the people who actually live in our communities. Choices on housing, transportation, taxes, public space, and basic city services look different in different places, and they should. A one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work for a state like ours. We have 351 cities and towns in this room, rural, coastal, mountain, urban, and when decisions that most states leave up to their local leaders here are instead made by senators or others from hundreds of miles away, we all lose out. At a time when the federal government is openly antagonistic to Massachusetts, the state should be empowering the leaders closest to the ground and closest to the communities, equipping municipalities. We need the state to help us equip our municipalities with the flexibility to respond quickly and effectively to the needs of our residents. That's why the MMA is so important. That's why the work that each one of you all are doing matters so much right now. You are empowering our communities to meet local needs. And the MMA is bringing us together at scale, because none of us on our own can completely resist illegal and sustained federal attacks. We have to do it together. Acting together gives us leverage, the best ideas, the best practices for how to implement them. If we work together, if we present a united front to defend our shared Massachusetts values, we can better protect all of our people all across the Commonwealth. That is the hard work ahead, work that calls for us to be nimble, flexible, and together. So thank you for choosing this work. Thank you for choosing to lead in a time when leadership is really messy and complicated, and believe me, it takes a lot on the family side and every other way. I am in awe of the work that is happening across our state at a moment when we need every person and every community to be standing up. Please count on Boston to be one more bit of wind beneath your wings, one more partner, one more ally in what we need to get done. Thank you so much for all that you are doing. Look forward to a great weekend.
Please welcome MMA's Deputy Executive Director, Katie McHugh.
Thank you, Mayor Wu, for those inspiring remarks. We appreciate the warm welcome to Boston. Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie McHugh, Deputy Executive Director of the MMA, and I couldn't be more excited to see you all here this morning for what is my 16th annual conference. We hope that you didn't have any trouble finding the newly renamed Menino Center and that you're enjoying this impressive space and the Seaport neighborhood. While it is exciting to be in a modern, expansive space, we know that it can also be intimidating. That's why we have plenty of staff and signage available, as well as our conference app, to help you navigate this conference over the next couple of days. This evening, it is going to be very cold, but I have some good news. If you're heading to the Omni for our events over there, you can avoid the worst of it by using the covered tunnel on the ground floor, which we are currently on, of the MCEC. Please be sure to use our Connect 351 conference app to find schedules, workshop listings and materials, and an interactive map of the trade show floor. You can use the app to personalize your meeting schedules and network with other members. If you registered for this conference in advance, you should have received an email with information on how to download the app. But if you need assistance with getting or using it, please visit the help desk near conference registration, talk to any staff member, or send an email to app@mma.org. I want to thank those of you who were able to join us yesterday for the opening of Connect 351. We hope you enjoyed our Thursday programs, the reception, and the opening of the trade show. Now, speaking of the trade show, our trade show has a record number of exhibitors this year with 287. It features a brand new AI Avenue, the return of EV Alley, and an expanded government row. Do not miss out. The trade show is on a Thursday and Friday schedule, so be sure to make your way there today because the exhibitors will not be there tomorrow. While you are at the trade show, at the very front near the 1800 row, we are offering free professional headshots again this year at the headshot station. Headshots are available today only until 4 p.m. on a first-come, first-served basis, courtesy of our blue ribbon sponsors, Airbnb, Amalgamated Bank, Amoresco, Commodore Builders, Morgan Brown & Joy, Niche Engineering, and Train Technologies. Now, you also will not want to miss tomorrow's general session at 9:30 a.m. for a fireside chat with Clarence Anthony, the Executive Director and CEO of the National League of Cities. Not only does Clarence lead the country's largest municipal association, but he has been in all of your shoes, having served as mayor of a small city for 24 years. Clarence has devoted his entire career to local government and to supporting and uplifting those who do this essential work every single day. Clarence talked with us recently for our podcast, The 351. I hope that you have checked out the conversation, and we can attest that he is an absolute joy and full of wisdom. He will engage in a conversation with journalist Crystal Haynes. Please be sure to join us right back here in this room. Also tomorrow, the MMA's annual business meeting will include remarks from United States Senators Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey, as well as Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, along with discussion on an important MMA policy resolution on the fiscal partnership between municipal and state governments in fiscal 2027 and beyond. And I also want to mention that Matt Forcier, who has produced several short videos for us in recent years, will be here today asking some of you to talk about your Connect 351 experience on camera. Thank you to those of you who take part. And now, please join me in extending your appreciation to the generous sponsors of Connect 351, and please hold your applause until the end. Our diamond level sponsor is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, and Blue Cross is the exclusive sponsor of our general session this morning. Our gold level sponsors are Abacus Health Solutions, Constellation, and KP Law. Our silver sponsor is MassSave. Our blue ribbon sponsors are Airbnb, Amalgamated Bank, Amoresco, Commodore Builders, Morgan Brown & Joy, Niche Engineering, and Train Technologies. And last, but certainly not least, please join me in acknowledging the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, or MIA as you know it, which supports Connect 351 in many ways. And now, I have the honor of introducing the presiding officer of this year's Connect 351, a person who has been an impressive leader not only in his own community, but for all Massachusetts municipalities, keeping us connected and focused on the important issues that unite us. Please join me in welcoming the MMA's president and Franklin's Town Administrator, Jamie Helen.
What do you say, Connect 351? Let's dance. Are we going to have fun this weekend? Let's do it up. There we go. All right, thank you, Katie. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Connect 351. I've had the immense honor of leading the MMA this past year, working alongside our excellent Executive Director, Adam Chapdelaine, the MMA staff, and of course, every single one of you in the audience today and throughout our state. I'd like to recognize MMA's Vice President this past year, Amesbury Mayor Cassandra Gove, who has been fantastic and is always supportive. She'll become our new president tomorrow. Thank you, Cassandra, for all that you do for the MMA. I wish you the best in the coming year. And as you always know, I'm always here for you, just like John and Jill before. And so congratulations. And now actually is the formal, we'll give her another round of applause. Wish I could get that kind of applause in Franklin, but we'll, So we all know that local government is where the action is, where problems are solved every single day to make sure our residents get the services that they need. The MMA's annual awards recognize some of these exemplary efforts in several areas, and it's my privilege today to announce the winners. Please hold your applause until the end. I know we're all going to want to cheer for each one, but we'll hold the applause till the end. The Kenneth Pickard Municipal Innovation Award recognizes municipalities that have developed unique and creative projects and programs to increase the effectiveness and efficiencies of local government. This year's Innovation Awards go to the town of Amherst for their Morning Movement and Mentoring Program. Amherst in the back, I hear they have a bus in the house today. Andover for their Andover at Work exhibit, and the town of North Attleboro for their partnership with the YMCA to combat hunger with a regional food distribution center. Yep. Second, we have the Town Report Contest. The following are the winners of the annual Town Report Contest. For towns with a population over 30,000, first place, Brookline, second place, Andover, third place, Arlington. For towns with populations between 15,000 and 30,000, first place, Foxborough, second place, Middleborough, third place, Concord. For towns with populations between 5,000 and 15,000, first place, Tingsboro, second place, Weston, third place, Littleton. And for towns with populations of 5,000 and under, first place, Northfield, second place, Avon, and third place, Hubbardston. Congratulations to all those folks. And the annual municipal website award winners are, for municipalities with a population over 35,000, the town of Brookline yet again. For communities between 25 and 35,000, the town of Wellesley. For communities between 12,000 and 25,000, the town of Webster. For communities between 5,000 and 12,000, the town of Maynard, only in Maynard. And for communities under 5,000, the beautiful town of Truro. We want to congratulate all of those winners and all of the entrants that put in their communities for those awards. And can members of those winning communities please stand up throughout the convention center? Can you all stand up? Great job, everybody, and great work. I also would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the judges for these awards. So please also join me in thanking the judges of these awards, Municipal Website Awards, Wendy Foxman and Jean Ostroff, as well as for the Town Report Contest, Keith Bergman and Greg Federspiel. Can we give them a round of applause as well? So moving on, our distinguished keynote speaker is brought to you here today through a generous donation from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. It is now my pleasure to bring to the podium a very valuable partner to the Mass Municipal Association, the Maya Health Benefits Trust, and municipalities, the Senior Vice President of Sales and Client Management at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Paul Sweeney. Please welcome everybody, Paul Sweeney.
It's a beautiful day.
Thank you, Jamie, and good morning. It's an honor to be here with you all to kick off the first full day of Connect 351. We're proud to sponsor this important event, and even more proud of our long-standing history with the MMA and Maya. It is with great pleasure that I introduce today's speaker, a disability rights activist. He was the longtime CEO and is the current chair of the Special Olympics, a global movement of 5.6 million athletes. He's also a nonprofit leader working to restore dignity to the national conversation, which we all know is desperately needed. He serves as CEO and founder of an organization called Unite and is co-creator of the Dignity Index, a tool that helps political leaders and citizens rethink the language they use to describe people with opposing views. His mission is to help people bridge social and political divides, see each other's humanity, and find common purpose in order to solve problems. Boston-born, he's a former public school teacher, a co-founder of the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, a best-selling author, and a podcast host. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Timothy Shriver.
You say what you want to say, and let the words fall out. Honestly.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Congratulations to all of you. Katie, thank you. Adam, congratulations. I heard Mayor Wu say, would all the public elected officials please stand so we could recognize them, and the whole room would stand. But thank you all for being here. I'm thrilled to be here and to be able to join my colleagues, Tammy Pfeiffer and Jerry and Alicia, who are also here, right here in the front row, and Chi Kim, one of our great sponsors. I also want to recognize, I believe, Mary Beth McMahon, who runs Special Olympics Massachusetts, which all of you have in your towns. Is Mary Beth here? Is she there she is. Mary Beth McMahon, who is the CEO of Special Olympics Massachusetts, is in the house. Now, I know everybody's got their phones out because you're watching the forecast and trying to find about snow, and people say, why are you going to Boston in the middle of a snowstorm? I'm here because of the Patriots. That's why I'm here. I mean, I've got my high school Patriots cap right here, if anybody wants to see me wear it, right? I think it's not too early to get the duck boats up and running. I hope we have a great weekend. I'm sure we will. So I'm thrilled to be here. I'm going to spend a few minutes hopefully getting us into discussion, not just listening, but into discussion about one of the central challenges of our time, and certainly I believe one of the central challenges each of you faces. I'm going to start with this image you have here of the words from the Declaration, as Mayor Wu said, as we all know, we're going to hear this over and over again for the next 6 months. We're in the 250th anniversary of our country. We're celebrating the Declaration of Independence. We're marking the moment at which our country had its birth. We're looking for wisdom from the past in order to guide us into the future. We are recognizing that at its core, we are a country that we choose to create, that we are in the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We hear a lot today about factors beyond our control. And we know that there are a lot of factors beyond our control that will affect us. But I'd like to suggest that it is the factors within our control that must direct us. That we are at a time when that serenity prayer, you know the part of the serenity prayer, God grant me the wisdom, what is it, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. Now, I know there's a reason they call it the serenity prayer, but I call it the challenge prayer. The courage to change the things we can. I'm going to talk to us a little bit about the ways in which we can think about the courage to change the things we can. Here's one thing I have not been able to change. It's sort of how I look. This is the image. Paul mentioned that I do a podcast called Need a Lift, bringing people, average Americans mostly, who are actually making a difference in their communities across boundaries. Anyway, I was taking this picture, and a guy walks into the coffee shop, big, actually, like, you know, big silver belt buckle, cowboy boots, clearly from out of town. This is in D.C. And he says to me, anyone ever tell you, you look like a Kennedy? And I was sort of not paying attention. I says, yeah, you know, I've heard that before. And he says, well, that must really piss you off, eh? He wasn't from Boston. But I want to share that in part to introduce the idea that is sort of common sense, but maybe we sometimes need reminding. We all judge a lot, and we judge quickly. We judge people by how they look, by where they come from, by the color of their skin, by the background, their ethnicity, by their religion, by their height, by their size, by their last name, by their first name. We judge a lot as human beings. But sometimes judgment goes from trying to gauge the situation to separation, to superiority, and even to dehumanization. I would suggest that right now we are in what I would call a culture of contempt, a culture where judgment and demonization and dehumanization has become normative. Arthur Brooks, the Harvard professor, even though I didn't go there, I can still give him a little credit, has written about this as an addiction. That we are living in a culture where we are in these cycles of actually needing the contempt to satisfy our hunger, our desire to be reassured at our own safety. This is not an accident. I think sometimes we think to ourselves, well, how did we get here? I hear this question, what happened? My view, our view, is that it's not an accident at all, that there's actually a contempt industrial complex, that it's fueled by an unholy alliance between the partisan news industry, which has an incentive to make you angry, and the algorithm, which has an incentive to remind you of your anger over and over again, and then partisan politics, which profits from both. That this is almost a $2 trillion business. And that business is designed to keep us whipped up in a state of devotional anger. If you don't believe me, let's start with news. Matt Taibbi has written about this in the past. As the purpose of partisan news is to sell anger and feed audiences what they love to hear and what they love to hate. It is not just to give you the news, it is to put you in a state of anger and to keep you mad and to keep you whipped up into devotional anger. So you watch the news tonight and you can't wait to get back to check out the news again because you're so angry and so outraged and so, I shouldn't say you, we are so furious, we got to get more. We got to find out what those horrible people did next. What did they do today? I can't believe it. And then you go, is this something that's happening by accident? Here's Van Jones. Van Jones is writing now and talking on this little clip right after the last election. Listen to how he describes what we're all experiencing. We'll play the video.
You got to forgive your neighbor for voting for Donald Trump. They're not seeing the same thing on their feed that you're seeing on your feed. Like I said before, when they wake up in the morning, they look at their phone, they see they're in a different movie with different bad guys, different good guys, scary music where your music is happy music where your music is scary. So you got to love them. You got to love them. And by the way, everything in your feed ain't right either. Everything in your feed is not correct, ma'am, sir. It's like, my feed is the truth. Your feed is a bubble. How likely would that be? That everything in your feed is correct and everybody else is getting tricked. We're all getting tricked. We're all getting used. We're all getting lied to. We're all getting propagandized. Me, you, and everybody else. And so we need each other. We need each other.
So I love that clip in part because I think in an audience like this, a lot of us might think of Van Jones as representing the progressive left or appearing on cable channels that we might find more friendly, more welcoming of our ideas. I have no problem with that. But you hear him say, even a person in the business, remind us, we're all getting tricked here. Our feed, which is, of course our feeds are factual. Of course we're getting serious journalism, and of course we're getting the accurate reporting. Those people, as he says, how likely would that be? That all of us are getting the truth, and all of them, whoever them is in a bubble. We're all getting tricked. The dividends of this are not insubstantial. Richard Edelman and the Edelman Trust Barometer studies trust in institutions, studies trust in political leaders, in journalists, in education, in the military, in all these different kinds of institutions around the world. He talks about this now as a highly aggrieved world. When we're treated with contempt, when we're fed this anger over and over again, what happens? We stop trusting. And we see this in our kids. Do they trust their teachers? Do they trust the employment? Do they trust the future? Do they trust the country? Do they trust law enforcement? Do they trust the military? No. Why would they? If they're living in a contempt industrial complex. And we have to remember that as good as contempt can sometimes feel, it might make you feel superior to others, but it also makes us fear them. It might make you feel powerful and even safe in the moment, but it makes everything more dangerous in the long term. It might make you feel as though it's protecting your ego, but it's destroying our relationships. Contempt is a toxin that is eating away at the social and cultural and trust and familial fabric for all of us. 100 million Americans, roughly, have ended a relationship in their family or amongst their closest friends. I don't go to, I was an usher in his wedding, but I don't talk to them anymore. We used to have Thanksgiving together. Not anymore. He's not welcome at our house. No. And so in this room, maybe 200-300 of us would say, this has destroyed relationships within our own family, and I can raise my hand and say, that's happened to me. Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny, but it's not that funny, honestly. It's actually extraordinarily painful. So this leads us, in my view, to a moment where we have to flip the way we're thinking about this issue and recognize that all the political and civic leadership in this room knows how to count issues. You know how to look at the importance of plowing the streets. You know how to look at police and fire and education and public security. You know how to look at all the different departments and issues that are important to your constituents. You know how you're going to be graded on those issues. You know how to campaign on those issues. You know how to work for policies on those issues. We got a new issue, gang. My argument here is that we have a new issue, and that is how we treat each other. That this has become, in this moment in time, an issue just as important as every other policy and political issue we face. And in some ways, it is my belief that it is the foundational issue which we will address or fail to address in a way that will determine how all the others work themselves out. The foundations of our relationships have become a central question for leaders around the country. So our view is that to think about this as an issue, we got to know, we know the problem, dehumanizing contempt. Those people are the problem. Your views are destroying the country. That's what's causing all the problems. Your group, you don't deserve to have your voice heard in my house. That's contempt. I'm better than you. What's the opposite? Donna Hicks, the international conflict resolution expert here, lives not too far from this building, who has studied the most violent conflicts in places like South Africa and Northern Ireland, Latin America, studied what it takes to heal. And she writes that the central concern of people trying to overcome contempt is wanting to have their dignity respected, wanting to have someone treat them and see them as people who have dignity, inherent dignity. And Richard Rohr, writing here from a more spiritual or religious perspective, challenges us to think that if we're going to make it, if we're going to move forward, we can't get there. We can rely on nothing less than our inherent original goodness and a universally shared dignity. That means everybody has it. You didn't earn it by getting elected. You didn't earn it by having a job. You didn't earn it with your degree. You didn't earn it with your report card. You didn't earn it by plowing the streets. You have it already. It is given to you, and no one and nothing can take it away from you. It's inherent and it's universal. This is a concept that almost seems obvious. Like, of course, you may be thinking, duh. Why would I take a picture of that screen? That's obvious, right? Except it's a little more challenging than we sometimes think. So when we started to think about and talk to political leaders around the country and in other countries as well, they started to say, well, that's all fine and well. But nobody evaluates us on this. We don't get elected on this. We don't get wins based on dignity. That's just, you know, be nice. Give me a break. That's not the real world. So a group of us said, okay, well, what would it look like if we actually did evaluate each other on this? And this led to the card you have in your seats, the Dignity Index. This is a scorecard, and you're going to become almost a PhD level a user of the Dignity Index in the next 4 to 6 minutes. That's how long it takes to study this thing. So let me just briefly tell you that in the Dignity Index, from 4 down, you have increasing levels of contempt. And this is evaluating how you talk to the other person when you're in a disagreement. Do you talk to them at the level of a 4, which is, you know, our group is better than, you know, we're just superior to you. Your ideas are okay, but our ideas are better. Frankly, you're not up to the snuff. That's a 4. A 3 is a little different. You know, we're the good people. You guys, you know, what you're doing is bad. You're carrying a bad message, honey. You're way off base to the point of now we're in a battle of us versus them. A 2, I don't know if you've used this today, I hope not. A 2 is that it's not just bad, evil. It's not us versus them, it's us or them. This town's not big enough for your group. We're gonna make sure you are silenced and removed. This is the language of hatred. And a 1 trips from hatred to violence. It's not just us or you. you got to go. You don't deserve to live. The other half of the scale, you'll see on your cards, moves up the dignity ladder. A 5 is sort of a, equal time. You use this in your town hall meetings. The Republicans got 5 minutes to address it. Now the Democrats have 5 minutes. Everybody had their equal time. We don't have to agree, but we listen. We're good listeners. We'll listen to your point of view. So we're now out of the contempt category, and we're starting to see each other as valuable. A 6 goes a little higher. Let's find common ground. I know we don't agree on this issue, but I bet there's some part of this. I bet there's some, there's a part of what you think and a part of what I think. Let's see if we can build common ground on that. That's a 6. A 7, let me go back. A 7 goes a little higher. A 7, the telltale word is humility. I'm interested, we don't agree, but I'm open to the idea that you might know something I don't yet know. Maybe. Let me listen. I'm not going to come into this thinking I have all the answers. You heard some of that in Van Jones, right? You heard some of that. We don't have all the answers. That's 7 language. And 8 is what I'd call love, or universal dignity. No matter what you've done, I will not violate your dignity. You may be in prison, or you may be in the State House, you may be in the corner office, or you may be at the welcome desk. I will not, no matter what, violate your dignity. That's 8 language. All right, that's the bachelor's level class. Now we're going to the master's level. You got it? Basically with me? You got your cards? Here comes the quiz. I'm a teacher by training. Good, thank you. I'm a teacher by training. Here's the first test. This is a quote from Leon Mugesera immediately at the beginning of the Rwandan genocide. We, the people, are obliged to take responsibility ourselves and wipe out this scum. Do not be afraid. Anyone whose neck you do not cut is the one who will cut your neck. And the quote at the bottom is from Heinrich Himmler. So this is a pretty easy opening question, a grim one, I will grant you that. How many people would grade this a 1? Hold up your cards. Very good, very good. This is a 1. This is 1 language, in both cases, calling for the violent destruction of your opponent. When we started working with this, we'd say, well, we have to look at history to find these quotes. I hope you're not surprised to know that we don't have to look at history anymore. As shocking as it is, we see 1-level speech routinely, I won't say every day, but often in the United States today. Let's try another one. That's one. Here's one that's a little more political and contemporary. This is Senator John McCain. I won't read the whole thing. We keep trying to find a way to win without the help from across the aisle. But what do we have to lose by working together to find solutions? We're not getting much done apart. There's greater satisfaction, I'm skipping down, in respecting our differences. Listen to him now. Respecting our differences, but not letting them prevent agreements. The Senate is capable of that. We know that. We've seen it before. I've seen it many times. And the times I was involved in even a modest way in working out a bipartisan response to a national problem or threat are the proudest moments of my career. All right, take out your cards. Here's the hint. It's a 5 or up. All right? So that gives you, you have a 25% chance of getting it right. How many people would grade this a 5? Just wave your card. How many a 6? How many a 7? Some good 7s, good. So the right answer here, and there are, I'm sorry to say, teachers don't like to say this sometimes, there are right answers. This is a 6. Because at a level 6, you see it as a welcome duty to find common ground. You didn't hear McCain saying, I could be wrong. That would have been 7. I have entered these agreements finding myself learning something I didn't know and changing my mind. If he'd said that, you would have heard 7 language. But what you heard him say is we find common ground. We found a way through this. Almost every family has, I hope, 6-level conversations pretty regularly. We don't agree on this, but you know, maybe we'll turn the thermostat up to 69. I would prefer it to be at 67. You want 72. Let's find, okay, 60. So let's put it at 70. Okay, fine, honey, fine. So that's a 6 conversation, right? One more test here. This is Pharrell Williams. This is Pharrell Williams speaking off the cuff, by the way, shortly after the 2016 election. Again, I won't read you the whole thing, but you'll get the idea. I'm telling you, he says, the world's a beautiful place, but it doesn't work without empathy and inclusion. Doesn't work, he's saying. God is love, the universe is love. That's the only way it will function, and I get it. Sometimes divisive stuff works. Every political leader in this room knows that's true. Sometimes the divisive stuff works. Everyone in this room, political or not, knows that's true. Sometimes divisive stuff works. But you have to choose what side you're on. Everybody here has to choose. It's the mandate of the Declaration. It's the mandate. You gotta choose what side you're on, he says. I'm choosing empathy. I'm choosing inclusion. I'm choosing love for everybody. Even when I disagree with someone, I'm wishing them the best and hoping for the best. Okay. Also on the dignity side, 5 and up, you get to choose. How many people would call this a 6? Raise your cards. 7s? Few 7s, few 8. I see you guys are so smart. This is Massachusetts, I knew it. Each of us is born in the 8 language within, and the reason this is so powerful is because he acknowledges that there are disagreements. He doesn't say he's walking away from his position. People often hear 8 languages, oh, I'm being nice. I'm just supposed to go along with the horrible things you're thinking. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say I'm going along with anything. He just says, I'm choosing love even in the midst of disagreements. I'm choosing empathy. I'm choosing inclusion. So now you're at the master's level. Now we got to get a little bit harder. One of my heroes, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Nobel Prize winner, actually led the dignity work of his country of South Africa after the end of the apartheid regime and led the resistance before that. Was asked in a hall, it was actually a hall just about this size. I had the opportunity to hear him speak, and the Q&A period came, and the person in the back has a microphone says, Archbishop, don't you have to agree? Isn't it clear that evil is more powerful than good? I want to just let you stew on that for just a second. Because how many times when we close our eyes, maybe at night or in the morning, or when we look out at what we see in the world, do we just kind of start to think, man, the bad side of us is winning? Tutu responded, he said, no, evil is not more powerful than good, he said. And then with a little smirk, he added, but it is better organized. Okay. So, this MMA gathering is an organization for good, right? Look to your right, look to your left, look around at the towns. Anybody from Barnstable or Hyannis? I need to meet you afterwards. Yay, okay. I need your numbers. It's not for parking tickets though. You look around here and the people in the room are here because they want to do, almost everybody gets into political life, into civic life, into social and cultural life. Almost everybody because they want to do something good for people. But we got to get organized. We got to get organized around this issue of how we treat each other. So we started with this index, just a little bit of history. This was a group of students at the University of Utah who helped us pilot the Dignity Index. And they scored it for about a month. We had a professor there working to get inter-rater reliability scores up and tighten the language and make sure the scale was working and make sure that serious conservatives and serious progressives could look at the text and score it the same way that it was objective. So these young people started us off using it, and we thought, you know what they're going to do? They're going to score Senator Lee or the congressional races that were going on. They're going to want to score Senator Warren or Senator Markey or the governor or the mayor. They were actually, after a very short period of time, not very interested in scoring politicians. But here's what they were interested in, using the index themselves. And all of a sudden, we started hearing, you know what, I'm trained on this. I got to go take down that post, that thing I said yesterday on Facebook. I'm going to go take it down. It was 2. That's embarrassing. I don't want to be at 2. And they started to say, you know, I got to try using this with my roommate. We haven't gotten along on so many different things. We're at a point where we're just treating each other with contempt. Our relation. And then other people say, you know, my father calls me every Sunday night, and I just can't stand the conversation. But I'm going to try. And so we called this, we decided to call this what we're calling the mirror effect. I'm going to give you a little exercise right now on the mirror effect. Take a look at the score card and remember the last time you talked about the other political party, whether it was 10 minutes ago or last night or last week. The last time you talked to your friends about the other party, whichever the other party is. I'm guessing most of us know, I know it. But now look down there and score yourself. And if you're willing to admit it, raise your hand if you just scored, raise your card if you scored yourself a 4. Be honest, a few 4s. Raise your card if you scored yourself a 3. More cards. Be honest. You don't have, no one's going to take your picture. Raise your card if you scored yourself a 2. Any 1s? Okay. Now, I'm not telling you, the index doesn't tell you what you should do. But this is a mirror that gives you the opportunity and the language to decide. Because the second thing those young people taught us was that the secret weakness of contempt is that we don't think we're being contemptuous. When you talk about the other party, you're telling the truth. They deserve it. They are horrible. And I'm saying that because I could say this to a bright red room or a bright blue room, and the exact same sentiment exists. I should treat them with contempt, as horrible as they are. Now, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, but actually they really are horrible. I'm not suggesting there's moral equivalence on all issues. But I do want you to wonder whether there's tactical equivalence. Whether we being whichever party you're in, are using the same tactics as the other side to try to voice our disagreement. Whether we're also party to the explosion of contempt, in part because we don't see it in ourselves. The mirror effect leads to this second effect, which is when we use contempt, it's hard to see it, but once we see it, I'm sorry to say you now have seen it in yourself, it's going to be a little harder to use it. It's going to be a little harder. Now, you may say, but it's going to be a little harder to use contempt once you realize that you have alternatives. As one woman said to me when we had this conversation, she said, I used to brag that I hate hateful people. Now, I'm saying if I hadn't put this slide up before and I asked you to raise your card if you hate hateful people, honestly, Honestly, how many people would have raised their card? Come on. Yeah, tell the truth. Those of you that didn't raise your hands, I hope you're right. I hope you are. The third thing and the last lesson of this index that we learned in this initial phase was that most people think of dignity as releasing people from accountability. And our colleague Tom Rochert has written, it's actually the opposite. Honoring people's dignity does not mean softening our passions. It does not mean becoming a centrist. Oh, I'll compromise on everything. I'll be a doormat. No, quite the opposite. It says, use your passion and your conviction with all the strength and power you have. But add one passion. Treat the other person with dignity. Ironically, treating people with dignity actually unleashes you to hold them accountable for their policies and their programs and their actions. Because you've gone around the easy road, which is to just call them names. How dare you, you vicious, you horrible, you vitriol, you terrible person. What does that hold them accountable for? Nothing. You've called them names and you've given them a pass on their point of view. So in summary, we built a little toolkit, and you can flip your cards now and see on the back lessons and skills that, when applied, help you move up. Could you become curious instead of furious? Could you regulate yourself in the debate? How many people take deep breaths when they're at city council meetings? Yeah. If we could teach kids how to take deep breaths, how to count to 10, how to turtle, go into their shells, and do some positive self-talk. Imagine if we could do that in Congress. Imagine if before you were recognized by the Speaker of the House, you had to turtle. You had to collect yourself. Imagine if we trained each other to challenge the ideas and the policies and the programs instead of the people. Listening skills. Do I really know? Have I heard? Do I understand your point of view? One of the most foremost scholars of some of these skills, I'm going to show you a short video here of, who is very, very sophisticated on the skill of self-awareness. How many people think they're really self-aware? I really know myself. I've studied. I really am really self-aware. Okay, so if you are, you're probably at the level of this PhD level person. Let's hear from Maxine.
Maxine, are you smart?
Yeah.
Are you strong?
Yeah.
Are you brave?
Yeah.
Are you pretty?
Yeah.
Are you kind?
Not really.
Put your list down of things you're not really. You don't have to show it to anybody, but it's really marvelous to see when human beings, when those of us who are trying to strengthen our relationships are actually self-aware about what we're good at and what we're not good at, so that we can figure out how to navigate and be honest with other people. And I mean, I'm half kidding about the PhD, but again, I would say that if I learned to do this, I mean, I've watched this video several times now, and I often, when I go back to my backpack, I pull out a piece of paper and I start to make lists, so I can be as good at this as she is. So let's think about what's the relevance for Massachusetts, for your towns, for all 351 of them. We've started to do this work with schools. We've started to do this work with businesses. We've trained almost 30,000 employees in Fortune 500 companies. Why? Because CEOs are saying, we want this in our company. We want better problem solving. We want better team building. We want stronger leadership skills. This helps us get stuff done. But what about politics? What about civic life? We've started working with people like Spencer Cox and Wes Moore, governors of Utah and Maryland, respectively. We've started working with governors like Governor Shapiro and Governor Stitt, who are also doing these collaborations where strong Republicans and strong Democrats don't compromise their principles, but learn how to treat each other with dignity when debating their principles. So this can work. As one political figure said, oh, you never win on this strategy. That's not true. Governor Shapiro, in our conversation just a few weeks ago, said, I'm proof you can win this way. And we've heard this from other political leaders as well. The country is starving. The base might not be. I'm just going to be honest. The base is not necessarily starving for dignity, but the country is. 60, 70, 80% of us are. Almost hopeless because of the despair brought on by contempt and dehumanization. Begging, looking, isn't anybody? Show me how. Can't we get out of this? Can you lead? People are starving for this. Here's one governor, Governor Phil Scott. He's recorded from Vermont. Many of you may know him. He's recorded a video that he did for the Disagree Better initiative that Governor Cox led. And it's tracked in this. You'll watch the tracking, and you'll see the in-the-moment reactions from Republicans, Democrats, and independents. The lines you'll see across the screen, red, blue, and yellow, will be Republicans, Democrats, and independents as they watch this short ad. Take a look.
When you face a disagreement, you can bring your points up, but you really should be listening to what are their points, what are their fears, why do they feel the way they do, and I think there's a way to get through that. Maybe learn something yourself. Maybe they will learn from you if you're calm and give a good argument instead of an emotional argument. If you still get to a point where you can't agree, that's okay. It's okay not to agree on every issue. It's okay not to win every issue. And hopefully you have that respect, mutual respect, so you can have those conversations. It's never too late to be a better person. It's never too late to be kind. It's never too late to put yourself into someone else's shoes and understand what they're going through. And just be better people and lead by example. Together, we can disagree better.
So you see the ratings there, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. And you know, if you took time, I mean, I don't know if this is on YouTube, you could watch it, but you could see where the spikes are. Frank Luntz, the pollster who's worked with us, will sort of disentangle all this and watch the words that help Republicans, Democrats, where they spike, where they move up, where people automatically go, yeah. So you can think about and watch for the words that people are hungry to hear. And in this one, as you can see, you get over 74%, up to 80%, 85% for Democrats on this one. You can see that there's a big audience for this kind of work. And you know, this idea that we're so divided is really in part a function of what we, this contempt industrial complex. Look at this data from More in Common. Every one of these questions scores over 80% of Americans agreeing. Leaders should compromise. Violence is never okay. U.S. is stronger due to diversity. Limit the wealthy political influence. Facts exist beyond opinions. Now, if you were to watch tonight's news, you wouldn't know that 10% of Americans agree with this. And you wouldn't think that 10% of the people in the other party agree with this. These are 80% numbers. I mean, nobody needs to get elected with 80%. 55 is usually pretty good. 60 is a landslide. We have massive agreement in this country on a lot of these principles. And that's why we're seeing so much uptake on this work. We're seeing school districts. This is out in Utah, where my colleague Tammy Pfeiffer has helped us put this in place with school boards. You can see on the left there the dignity index, and you see the hand at the bottom of the left-hand column. You see the hand like this. because the school system is adopting the index and challenging kids and teachers to use 5 and up language when they disagree, modifying the tool to make it usable for young people. And you see these other school boards are using it in their own different ways. Here's an example which is, I want to warn you in advance, this is the judge at the arraignment of the person accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. But when we think about our institutions, we should be reminded that many of the people leading our institutions stand for exactly this principle. Let's play this short video of Judge Tony Graff.
As this case moves forward, Mr. Robinson's constitutional rights will be protected at every stage. He sits before this court presumed innocent, and that presumption remains unless and until each element of every offense charged against him is proved beyond a reasonable doubt. At the same time, and as applicable, victims are entitled under our Constitution to be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity, free from harassment or abuse. Justice demands that both of these principles, the rights of the accused and the rights of victims, be honored without compromise. I remain steadfast in my oath that I made 56 days ago to support and defend the constitutions of the United States and of Utah. I will carry out my duties with fidelity, transparency, and impartiality, treating every person who appears before me with the dignity and respect they are inherently due because they are human beings.
That's America. So we have role models, gang. We have a lot of role models. You can find them in Pharrell Williams, you can find them in the judge, you can find them in many of our mayors and many of you. We need a common language to elevate this question. I'm going to skip a couple of slides here. I'm going to leave Stephen Colbert up there in case we have time at the end. It's a great clip, but it's like too long, and I'm at 34 seconds. So let me close. It's a tease. It's a really fun clip, but I don't know if we'll have time. Let me close just by saying what Pharrell Williams said. You got to choose what side you're on. None of this is easy. Everybody's job in this room is tough. You're bombarded, I'm guessing many of you, with hostile, aggressive, contemptuous challenges all the time. The superstructure around us is big. It's at least a $2 trillion business. But we all got to choose what side we're on. And maybe you want to make the choice thinking about your kids. Maybe you want to make the choice thinking about their future. You want them to believe in the country you believe in, the town you believe in, the school system you were raised in, the police and law enforcement people you trust and know, the emergency responders that risk their lives. You want them to believe. You want them to believe. We gotta choose dignity, gang. If you want to solve problems, getting the best ideas from the other side, we gotta treat them with dignity. There is no America without democracy, and there's no democracy without debate, and that depends on dignity. And if we want to prevent violence, maybe at the simplest level, we can all say violence should never be a solution to a political problem. And if we believe that, we've got to recognize that the way we speak to and about each other matters. So we have an opportunity. I'm an optimist. I was raised by optimists. I was raised by a woman who saw 200,000 Americans locked up in institutions in the 1960s and said, we're going to change it. And there wasn't a single person in government or in medicine who thought that. So the odds are long. But my mom and now Mary Beth and the thousands of volunteers in your towns are still committed to making our country more inclusive today because she took a chance and together with other moms and dads believed that those kids mattered. Well, we got to believe every American matters because you can't love this country and then hate your fellow Americans. We've got to find a way through this to treat each other better. I hope you'll join me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have time, we have 15 minutes for questions, and we have microphones. And let me just say at the outset, any questions okay? Tough questions. If something's, you heard something, oh, I didn't like when he said that, or this doesn't make sense. Well, let's have the conversation. My message is not that I'm going to tell you how to treat each other. Our message is we got to talk about how we treat each other. So I want to open the floor, and then I'll say one last thing at the end, and maybe we can see Stephen Colbert. I don't know. If nobody has a question, we can watch Stephen Colbert. But there are mics. I don't know where the mics are. Maybe raise your hand if you have mics. Yeah, questions? Down here in front. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much, first of all. Our contingent is from Situate, Mass.
Nice.
My question would be, when you find yourself struggling to wonder if you're doing a good enough job, whether it's with your constituents or your clients, what types of tools do you use to question yourself about how well you're doing today in general about following your own rules?
Yeah. It's a good question. You can self-monitor, and we have in certain situations, for instance, governors, both Cox and Stitt, both Republicans, Oklahoma and Utah, respectively, have spoken about times where they dropped below their own threshold of aspiration. So you can say, you know, I just used 4 language in talking, in responding to your question. I could do better. Let me try to reframe that in 6 language. I'll still want to say what I believe, but I'm going to try to do it without the contempt. So you can self-monitor. You can also work with people who monitor you, which I do. And on conference calls and Zooms, people will say, hey, you know what, Tim, that was just a 4, or that was a 3. And in the moment, I don't always see it. But it helps when you're in a community where other people can sort of mutually reinforce the challenge of moving up. You know, my wife, unfortunately, also knows the index really well. So that's dangerous if you share it with partners or spouses, but just be forewarned, it's a good thing. So I think what we're trying to do here is build a common language where we can both self-monitor and collect and share in monitoring one another, not to catch you making a mistake, but to invite you to change. So that's the general answer, I'd say. Yes, right up front.
Hi, thank you. I tend to try to have conversations with the other side. I have good friends that vote on the other side. We discuss these issues in depth quite often. When do you call out the contempt? I mean, the leader of this nation, so contemptuous, every day making excuses for murder and dragging people out in the street and all kinds of things. I won't go through the list,
yeah.
But when the leader of this nation is contemptuous of its own people and harming and looking for division, and when do you call out contempt?
So I think you can call out contempt any time, but I think the best way to call out contempt is to focus on what, in this case, what the leader has done, not who the leader is. This is a subtle point, and it's not. This does not apply at all times, just to be clear. But the easy thing is to call someone the name. He's outrageous. He's done something that's beyond the pale. This is contemptuous at a level unforeseen, hateful, demonic, dehumanized. He is the epitome of hatred. So what have I talked about? Have I talked about ICE? I haven't talked about ICE. Have I talked about renaming the Kennedy Center? No, I haven't talked about renaming the Kennedy Center. I had a really interesting set of conversations about that. It's not important enough to waste your time on, but it's interesting to ask yourself the question, how would you challenge the decision to rename the Kennedy Center rather than cursing the person who did it? In the moment when your dignity is being violated, if I say something contemptuous about you, I call you a name, that's a different situation, because then you have to manage your own intuitive desire to respond with contempt. And you may decide, I'm going to respond with contempt. You may be able to interrupt that stimulus response mechanism that we all have with that deep breath and get to Maxine's level where you can sort of self-regulate a little bit and know yourself and then respond. You may still respond with a fierce response, but at least you will have bypassed the amygdala response, for those of you that all know that language. So I'd say, look, I don't think we should not call out unjust, dehumanizing behaviors, policies, programs, but I don't know that it really helps to sway anybody when we just resort to calling names. I think most of the reason we have this crazy gap between what I see and what they see, like we say, oh, the president's approval rating is so low, it's 45%. I mean, if you take that as a number, that's 140 million Americans who are saying they like what the president is. Now, you may say, how is this possible? Part of the reason it's possible is because people on the left and on the right spend most of their energy just calling each other names, which doesn't move anyone. It just makes people react and call names back. You call him names, his people call you names. And we haven't done anything about the Kennedy Center. I'll leave it at that one. Yes, over here in the middle of the room.
Hi, my name's Alex Pratt. I'm from Malden, Massachusetts. So we can apply the dignity index to our organizations, our city councils, our departments, our staff.
Yeah.
How do we apply it to a community when we don't have the same connection with the people in the community that we don't see every day? We see it online, we see it in community meetings when there is a physical dynamic often in the room of an us versus them, us up at the podium, them in the audience. How do you engage with a community where you have divisions that you described of people getting totally different sets of facts, sets of information? How do we apply the index more broadly to a larger group of people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have a perfect answer for you. Here's the theory of change. The theory of change here is that we are going to not feel good about ourselves if our goal is to change the algorithm tomorrow, because we're not likely to win that. We are likely to win creating a subculture. Almost every great movement starts with a subculture, where people go, what are they doing in that town? They seem to solve problems. You know, they seem to pass their budget much more easily there. They seem to be able to hire and fire teachers or firefighters or emergency managers or police officers. They seem to be getting stuff done. And people start to look. Now, at the micro level, our view is if we can nest this in a neighborhood, in a community, if we can bring the police department, the fire department, the school board, the city council, all into the same conversation. If you saw these cards in the wall at school, and the kids were learning it, and parents were seeing it, and leaders were modeling it, it's not perfect, but you start to create a kind of a domino effect where it becomes normative, right? Think of all the big cultural changes in our time, in my lifetime, lots, yours even many. So one day, everybody's thinking X, and like 5 years later, the whole country flipped, right? What happened? Some group held the post for love is love. And the next thing you know, every state almost in the country and the federal government and the Supreme Court all moved. So I think we got to trust that by creating even, I'd call it almost countercultures. Business leaders don't like that language as much. I kind of like it because it feels, but I think we have to think about building little by little and creating the pattern that reverses the big pattern. Now, what do we do about the algorithm? Anybody got an idea? Raise your hand. You know, we can knock on the doors at the people there in charge of social media, but I think one thing we can all do is not repost and not, every time you click on something, I think you all know this, every time you click on something, you're paying for it, somebody. So if you click, I don't care whether you're reading the Boston Globe or Apple News or Facebook or TikTok or wherever you're getting your news from, every story you click on, someone gets paid. So don't click on the ones that are full of contempt. And you can say, well, how am I going to stay informed? Trust me, if it's important, you'll find out. You don't have to read every story between 10 and 11 a.m. that talks about how horrible the person you hate in politics is. You don't have to. You'll stay informed. We got to actually begin to build counterwaves on this stuff, and I think that's what we're seeing, in the places like I showed you on the chart. I'm going to also see if I can go back a few. My friend in the slides, can we go back to where I left off, or maybe just go back a few slides because I want to try to point out one thing I was going to spend a minute on. That right there. Stop there. Here's a proposal to try to answer your question. If you took a community or a school or a city council or a department and said, we're going to teach, we're going to communicate, we're going to convene, and we're going to practice. This is the science of how we change. We don't change by having an insight. We change by practice. So these are all ideas that our little team would be happy to help you with, for instance. We're partnering with school districts, year-long engagement, frequent visits. We're learning, we're trying to teach, we're practicing, we're finding new ways, where people are building projects together. So all of a sudden, let's prove whether or not this works. Here's the problem we haven't been able to solve for the last 3 years. Let's sit down, maybe we need a coach, talk to each other with dignity, see if we can have a breakthrough. These things start to have a knock-on effect. Hope that helps. Any other questions, hands? Right up, way up here in the front. Oh, do you have someone already? No. Yes? Okay. So we'll go here and then we'll bring the mic. Can I get a mic up towards the front here? Here it comes. Yes, sir.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Great talk, by the way.
Thank you.
My name is Jonathan Obensley-Man. I'm a Northeastern grad student starting my PhD. Your words on self-reflection as a mirror effect and the dehumanization, it really reminds me of Paulo Freire's concept of praxis.
Whose concept?
Paulo Freire's.
Okay, Paulo Freire, yes. In education, yes.
Yes. And my question is, would you say that participatory action research, can that be a gateway to cultivate and facilitate that universally shared dignity? And what role do you see the Dignity Index having in these spaces?
Well, the answer to the first question is yes. Between the first and the second question, I'm trying to remember my Paulo Freire and my, how many people expected a PhD candidate to get up and ask me really hard questions? I did not see that coming. Okay. Participatory action research would be terrific in this space because you'd get people engaged not only in watching qualitatively how these dynamics occur between human beings, but also trying to look for patterns and trying to disentangle those patterns. If you want to, I don't know whether you've decided on your dissertation, but if you're looking, we'd love to have you. Research is very important in this because, we want to be objective here. We spent a year with what we called a National Citizens Panel. We sorted 6 different political demographics, or 7 different political demographics, not just Republicans, Democrats, but 7 different nuanced positions on the political spectrum, brought those citizens together for an entire year to determine whether they could come to agreement. Scoring Trump, scoring Biden, scoring, this, scoring that. And they do. So the research question we had is, can people be objective about the language and culture and normative patterns in the ways in which they disagree? The answer is yes, they can. We can be objective. We can judge our own selves or our own party objectively, and we can judge the other party objectively or the other group. So the boundaries, I think, of new ideas and research are very broad, and we'd welcome you to the team. We don't pay, but we welcome you to the team. Yes. Last question, I think.
Mr. Schreiber, thanks very much. I didn't know what to expect from your talk today, but I found this very enlightening, a really helpful message. And I don't have a question. I want to offer you a bumper sticker idea, a slogan, beyond contempt, which might be a way of expressing extreme contempt for somebody, but it's actually a label I would wear with pride. I think that's where we want to get to, is beyond contempt.
All right, so we have an advertising and and marketing team that's convening here right after the talk. Let's go to the last slide. My time is up, but I'll leave you with Dr. King writing from his letter from the Birmingham City Jail, which I would recommend to everyone here. I know you're going to say I read it before. Read it again. If you want to see an example of someone who's fierce and determined and committed to making a difference, who's willing to risk it all in order to make the difference, and is almost completely free of contempt, read the letter from a Birmingham City Jail. If you ask me, Dr. King, when he invites us to answer this question, will you be extremists for hate or for love? He's not giving you the option of whether or not to answer. You have to answer one way or the other. I believe on this 250th anniversary year for our country, we've got to remind ourselves that we can develop the wisdom to see dignity, we can develop the courage to pursue it, and we can find the joy that in living it and in overcoming, finding the space beyond contempt. See how quickly I use your slogan? Finding the space beyond contempt, we can live without apology. And I dare say, although it's not a word used very often in politics, lead with love. Thank you all again for your leadership, and thanks for having us.
Wow. Thank you, Tim. That was absolutely fabulous. Hopefully the Dignity Index gives everybody a tool they can use back in their communities. Please watch for an upcoming MMA podcast featuring Tim and his colleague Tammy Pfeiffer, who will be also speaking at the WeMo Luncheon shortly. You can pick up an additional Dignity Index cards to share with your colleagues at the MMA booth on the trade show floor as well. Our next two speakers are well known to all of you as partners of local government and are absolutely awesome. They continue to work on issues for municipalities, including housing and economic development, climate change, infrastructure, and much, much more. It is my pleasure and distinct honor to introduce to you today our esteemed Governor Maura Healey and Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll.
Got it? Yeah. Toss it aside. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good morning. And afternoon. And afternoon. Thank you, President Helen and Adam and all the great folks at MMA. It's great to see all of you here this morning. I know we have mayors and city councilors and town managers and administrators and select board members, finance committee members and staff. God bless you, okay? We know, from our roles, these jobs aren't easy. And at this moment, these jobs are especially not easy, okay? So just like, to be clear, we are so grateful that you are willing to serve and that you are willing to show up every day to help move our communities forward. And, if you take nothing else from this, you have a partner in us. You have a partner in our administration. We also believe that the strength of our state depends on the strength of our cities and towns. Our cities and towns are strong, our state is strong, and that's why last night, as challenging as things are, I meant it when I said, you know what? The state of our Commonwealth is strong. And that's because of what you guys do. Now, I did make some announcements last night, so I know not everybody might have tuned in to what we had to talk about, okay? So we'll give you a quick recap on some things. I talked about some of the struggles right now. I mean, affordability is not a new buzzword to us, okay? And I know it's not to you. We've all been dealing with this. And right now, the fact of the matter is we've got a federal administration that, you know, is not helping. They're driving prices up, and they're making things more difficult for all of us, whether that's freezing food and health benefits or cutting off services for veterans. You know, last month we're dealing with taking away health care. I mean, the hits just keep coming. But, you know, we just have to stand strong together. And I think now more than ever, we just need to double down on our partnership and our collaboration. And, you know, frankly, I think that Massachusetts, our ability to work together as we have for so many years, and we're really going to do that now, and you've got no better partner than the Lieutenant Governor to make sure that's going to happen. I think we can be a really positive response and a role model, frankly, for the country right now. People who are looking for stability, common sense, and, you know, a focus on their lives, what matters to them. So we're going to be working on all these things, from healthcare to housing to energy. We know that we're also going to focus on the things like education, you know, making sure our communities are safe, driving a vibrant economy across the entire state. And I mean that, across the entire state. So we support you. We see you as key partners. And, you know, we're totally game and up for the work that we're going to be required to do over the next year. A couple things just to note, okay? Housing. We said last night that 3 years ago, we got a study. You guys saw it. The Commonwealth hadn't been building really in big ways since the 90s. We didn't have enough supply. We were short 220,000 homes. So I said last night, first of all, we took that seriously, the call to build 220,000 homes by 2035, and got after it. And you know, I said last night, look, we're already 100,000 homes built, permitted, or under construction. And I said, we're going to continue to do everything we can to accelerate that, whether that's taking state land that's not being used or abandoned hospitals on it, turning those into housing. You got cities with vacant office space because of remote work. We're going to look to turn those into housing. I want to thank everybody who's worked with us on MBTA community plans and getting those across the finish line. We also announced last night that we're expanding down payment assistance, 25 grand to help families find that first home. You know, we talked about a number of things, but just know, like, we are going to continue to stay laser focused on building more and building faster. I know your communities depend on it. Our economy depends on it. On healthcare, major challenge right now when the federal government takes $1 trillion out of healthcare, which is what happened this summer. We're all seeing the problems. But just a few weeks ago, we managed as a state, only state to do this, biggest commitment, we managed to keep about 270,000 residents on health care. They were people who were going to see their premiums skyrocket, effectively taking insurance away from them, and we were able to keep them covered. We also announced last night, you know, that we were going to reform prior authorization. Back before, we capped deductibles, capped copays, right? And now we've gotten rid of prior authorizations for a lot of treatments, and I think that's going to help a lot of people. I've also, yeah, that got applause last night, because that's a real thing. It's a real aggravation. It adds time, delay, not good. So we worked hard to do that. The other thing we did, and we're serious, we put together a healthcare affordability working group with a bunch of stakeholders to figure out right now, we can't wait for Washington, okay? So what are the things that we can do now? Short term, medium term, longer term, and we're on that. On energy, look, I know you guys are stretched thin. We announced that February and March, we're taking 25% off of people's electric bills and 10% off of their gas bills.
Each month.
That's each month we're doing that, okay? We're working on trying to source and get as much energy into the region as possible. It's good that we flipped the switch last week on Hydro-Quebec. That's going to supply 20% of our electricity needs. But, you know, moving forward, we're going to continue to oppose big rate hikes by the utilities. We're going to continue to look for ways to give money back to people, and we're going to continue to work regionally with other states so that we can better leverage and use our purchasing power to get more energy in. And by the way, we're all of the above in terms of approach, but we feel you, we hear you, we're working on that. With that, I want to turn it over to the LG, who, I got to say, nobody's working harder across the state, and nobody's hustling more for our cities and towns. You have the best champion in your corner, and I'm just so grateful I get to serve her there every day as a teammate. Kim.
Thanks, Gov. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Governor. How lucky am I as well? Like, we make a strong team, and we're here to serve and really get things done in Massachusetts. And I know everyone here knows a little bit about that. I want to add 2 exclamation points on some of the things the governor raised. On housing. The other reason housing is so important is because of the workforce that you need, the talent that we need in this state. One of the biggest challenges I heard when we were on municipal listening sessions were, I can't hire people. Where's my procurement agent coming? Where's my next assessor coming from? The deputy treasurer, the deputy collector. We really want to focus on how we can have some solid workforce initiatives, but housing is a big piece of that. And I know it's a challenging communities. I've got scars on my back, many of you do, from leading in a housing forward way, but that is how we are going to maintain talent that is going to serve in our city and town halls and do this important work that we do every single day. On the energy cost, a number of you have municipal aggregation in your communities. In fact, there are 180 communities now that have signed up for a muni aggregation. We have made that process easier, so if you have not signed up for municipal aggregation and that's something you're interested in, now is the time to do it. We are saving hundreds of millions of dollars for ratepayers through municipal aggregation. That is combining resources to bid your electricity. That is also saving cities and towns money as well. So now's the time, if you haven't done municipal aggregation, to try and get in on that and help us reduce those costs for ratepayers, for your own bills. And it's a smart policy, right? We always try and group procure things and keep that in mind. And on healthcare, it's the #1 issue that I've heard from many of you. Just cost rising, far surpassing our ability to keep up with it. That's happening at the state level for anyone who's on GIC plans. That's happening for all of you. Many of you may go through Maya, or you're self-funded in your own insurance plans. We know that we have to invest in a system that's more affordable, and this affordable healthcare work group is going to be critical. When the federal government pulls out, and if people are not insured, either on the Connector program or however they're obtaining their health insurance, it doesn't mean they don't get sick. It means when they get sick, they go to the emergency room. That is the most costly and the least productive way to serve people. And frankly, all of us pay for that. Anybody who does have insurance ends up having to cover some of those costs through higher care. That's why it's so critical that we really use this group to understand healthcare providers, insurers, pharma. Everyone who's in the system of healthcare is around the table. And as the state that put together the first universal healthcare plan that has the most coverage and that frankly has the best healthcare in the country, we are now poised to figure out how do we make sure we maintain that going forward. These budget cost drivers that are impacting our ability to do everything else, it's not lost on us. So stay tuned. That group is already working hard. There's some good ideas percolating. And the governor has told them, I don't want a year-long study. Let's get some points on the board early. Pre-authorization is certainly something that helps patients and consumers. We also think it can cut down on administrative costs. So good work already starting and more to come. When we think about the work ahead, we started with this Municipal Empowerment Act. Many of you have been there with us on this journey. You know that this is really important when it comes to things like procurement reform, double polls, snow hauling and removal. It's some of the housekeeping and nuts and bolts of the work we're doing, from how we procure school buses to senior property tax exemptions, the OPEB Commission. There's a lot of reform in there. There's great language. There's some more flexible funding opportunities. We really are hoping to get that over the goal line. It is going to take your help and advocacy. You all have legislators. I know many of you work closely with them. If you can put an exclamation point on the importance of this and what it will mean for your community, if and when this gets adopted, I think now's the time to do that. We also wanted to talk about transportation funding. Just this morning, we refiled the Chapter 90 bill. It maintains the $1.2 billion. That's the 50% increase in what we put on the table last year is back in place. You know, we've reformed some of those formulas, looking at miles. We're trying to give a bump to our rural communities who have much larger spaces but don't always have the opportunity. Where are my rural towns, right? All right. We see you, and we're trying to do more in that way. This 10-year transportation plan is also going to include easier ways to access dollars. Working with MassDOT, we are putting together what we're calling an accelerated bridge construction program known as ABC. We have many municipal bridges that just missed the threshold for qualifying for state funding because they're maybe just a few feet short. Some of them are in disrepair, have load restrictions, or are closed. We are tackling that head on with MassDOT. We've already identified 18 bridges, many of which are closed, a lot of which are in Western Mass, that we are going to lean into, put investment to get those bridges reopened, to understand we can change those load restrictions and get those repairs made faster. That's the type of partnership we need. Phil Eng is here. Phil, if you can stand up, I want to make sure everybody knows who you are so they can hound you afterwards. We're lucky to have Phil at the helm, and he knows when we can make these projects work, it's not only good for economic development, for moving people around, it's great for quality of life. And there are key areas that this was your idea that we can focus on to ensure we're building stronger, building smarter, and building faster. When it comes to local aid, that budget isn't filed yet, but we always try and give a preview here. We've got a 4.4% overall increase in local aid, totaling more than $10.4 billion in new dollars. That's an increase in Chapter 70 in veterans benefits and in UGA in unrestricted aid. We're going to have more to say on budgets in terms of additional opportunities for us to celebrate the good work you're doing and enhance it. I want you to know this is a key priority throughout the entire budget process. We know the stress you're under, and we know the work that you're doing. We can't build housing as a state, it's built in a community. When we talk about wanting to make education a priority, the third graders learn to read in communities. When we talk about infrastructure, we're all going to be plowing a lot of snow in the next couple of days. That is happening locally. So we are really focused on how we can make not only lives easier, but this partnership stronger in terms of celebrating vibrant communities. I know one of the best parts of today is the opening of the One Stop for Growth grant program. That is the way that we bring infrastructure, large capital projects into fruition into our communities. As a former mayor, this was always my favorite program. You know, you want to have something under construction, in the pipeline, and under design so we can start funding those initiatives together. No community can tackle these large infrastructure programs alone, and that's what the One Stop for Growth is designed to do. It also includes money for planning. We've got small rural communities carved out. We are trying to tailor these programs to meet both the size and scale and opportunities that exist within each of your communities. And we've added programs to the One Stop, like the Seaport Economic Council. Now it's one application through the One Stop. MassDOT is working on ways that they can improve transportation infrastructure through the One Stop. Over the last 2 years, that program has delivered about $160 million statewide, supporting 651 projects, with even more communities reached in 2025 than we ever had. We had a number of first-time communities who had applied and received funding. So if you're not on the One Stop train, get on it. We want to support your projects, your infrastructure, your economic opportunities, and this is the way to do it. It's designed for communities to make it as easy as possible with a lot of feedback. We all know what it's like when you spend hours putting in a grant application and it doesn't comply. Talk to our staff. We've got people on the other end of the phone who want success for you. This is a partnership and can steer you in the right direction in terms of what you're applying for. Maybe you only need a planning grant to get started. Maybe the project can be phased. Think of us as not just allies, but accomplices in the support that we need to have for our communities. And with that, this is a fabulous way to bring everybody together. I know these are tough times. As the governor said, more than ever, this is when we need to collaborate, understand what's happening in your communities, how we can work together. We've got a lot of assaults coming from us with the federal government, and frankly, we have our own challenges around budget pressures. We need to work together even stronger to make sure the things that we rely on in our community, the most vulnerable, the opportunities we have to leverage and bootstrap off the amazing economic activities happening, that it's happening throughout all of our communities, and we're prepared to do that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the governor for the closing part of the Amy Poehler-Tina Fey Act so we can get on with the conference.
Thanks, LG. Well, I'm not that funny. She's funny. You know, look, you know, to the LG's point, we know these are hard times. Make sure you get in touch with us. You know, rather than letting things fester or grow, you know, nip it at the bud, something to identify, get to me, get to Kim, get to somebody on our team, see what we can do, okay? A lot of pressure on you, pressure on us. The sooner problems are identified, let our teams get to work in problem solving. The other thing is we've got some great things happening in the state this year. Obviously, we've got the 250th, and as the place that actually gave birth to American democracy. I mean, America was founded because of Massachusetts and what people did 250 years ago. We take pride in that.
Get it, Lexington.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said last night, we walk in the footsteps, right? I mean, when we're out on town greens or town commons, whether it's for a picnic or a concert or, playing catch, I mean, that's where militia trained, right? I mean, we still vote in town meeting houses, right, where democracy was first given a voice. So, with everything else that's going on, take a moment to take that in. We've got that going on. We've got World Cup coming, and we've got tall ships. One thing that Kim and I are committed to is sharing the love and the wealth, okay? You're here today in the great city of Boston. Mayor Wu doing a great job. We want to make sure that all of our cities and towns benefit from tourism and people coming through. So, we look forward to working with you on that. And just have a good weekend. No, seriously, I know we got to get back to some storm prep. I think it's going to be real. I think it's probably just as well. The Patriots aren't playing in Foxborough, so they're going to go kick some Bronco butt. But we're going to have to take care of. We're going to have to take care of business here. I also want to say something and give a nod to Tim Shriver. Nice to have him back in the Commonwealth, and really appreciate that initiative. You guys know, yes, we need that now. We need that now. All right, we're out. We wore our running sneakers today. We're repping New Balance, great Massachusetts company. But we also do it because, yes, it's a heck of a lot more comfortable, and because we're on the go, okay? So we got to get after it. You guys be well. God bless. Take care. And thank you for everything that you do for your residents and our great state.
Thanks, everyone. All right, let's get a selfie right here.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. This is a great job. Thanks, Governor. Yeah. All right, so thank you very much, Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, for speaking to us this morning. We appreciate your leadership and all that you do for the 351 municipalities, and we look forward to the continued partnerships with all of you, and just want to thank them. Thank you all for coming today. For those attending the WeMo luncheon with guest speaker Tammy Pfeiffer, doors open at 11:30, and it's being held up in the front of this hall right over there. And for those going to the trade show, exit this room to the right. Have a great Connect 351 conference, everybody. Thank you.